Hi everyone, welcome to, is this our second online Female Tech Founder, Gigi?
It is, but it's the 12th ever.
It's the 12th ever, fantastic. So before we move on to the next thing, I just want to say a few words about this evening, because today is in partnership with Barclays Eagle Labs, and I know Patty from Barclays is here on the call. Hello Patty, just a call out to you, and I think everybody's disappointed that we're not physically in the Eagle Labs, but we're going to hold you to your promise that we will have a physical event there at some point in the future. So thank you very much. We're delighted to have you. We're delighted to be on board. So let us move on to our first session, and I'm going to invite Giulia to speak. Melanie and Katy can go off screen if you want to begin with, and just enjoy this time. And Giulia, I'm going to invite you to introduce yourself, tell us about your organization, tell us particularly about Women in Innovation Program, but also I know you have a couple of other things that you really want to share with us. So I'm going to hand over to you and let you take it from there.
Thank you very much, Marie. Thank you very much, Cici, too, also for inviting me. Of course, they are doing my garden right now. They just started again. But first of all, I would like to show you some slides I prepared for today, so you can also see a bit better what I'm going to mention. Okay. Let me see this. I suppose you can see my slides now?
It looks...
Okay. Can you see them?
Yes, I can. Fab.
Okay, that's great.
Looks great.
Okay. So my name is Giulia Sirigu. I'm one of the Enterprise Europe Network Senior Innovation Advisors. The Enterprise Europe Network work together with KTN as Innovate UK delivery partners. And within the same Enterprise Europe Network, there are a number of delivering partners. The company I'm working with is called Inventia, and is one of the three EEN partners in the Northwest. So what the Enterprise Europe Network does generally, we provide help to companies that are doing innovation. And what are we generally doing? We are providing support in internationalization, seeing how companies that are growing can be supported in order to increase the growth, in order to bring the innovation into the market. However, during this coronavirus period, we are doing something bit broader. So we are being asked by Innovate UK to provide extra support to the companies, and this is relevant for companies that are doing innovation and they are growing. So the type of support we provide in order to send application out for the grants, in order to have support on the cash flow, in the funding and investments in general, in order to cope with the effects of the COVID-19. For instance, if you don't know, as Cici was mentioning before, if you don't know how to prepare yourself to the ending of the lockdown, we can provide a type of support helping you to build resilience and to review your business model plans, etc. So this type of support is including within the Innovate UK support, together with the Women in Innovation Program that is already planned by Innovate UK in order to encourage the presence of women in innovation. I will be talking later about what the Women in Innovation Program includes more specifically. Before, I would like to encourage everybody to think about the possibility, if you are struggling economically, to apply for the Innovate UK grants, regardless the fact that they are not just directed to women. This is why. Because there is plenty of support in the last period. Some of you probably could have applied to the COVID-19 support grant. The deadline was on the 17th of April. There will be more grants similar to this one. So what I want to do now, and after you are more than free to contact me if you need further support, is to give you an overview of the type of economic support that is present now through Innovate UK. So if you're having any question, feel free to contact me. And if you are still having doubts if you can apply or not, please let me know. Taking into account that most of these support grants I'm mentioning today are directed only to companies that are doing innovation. On the last Friday, actually, Innovate UK launched a new type of support for companies that are already benefiting from Innovate UK grant. This type of support is open also to startups, as well as the other type of support for the Future Fund that is open to startups that have already raised up to 260K of match funding. The new type of support that is the support that is planned in order to consolidate and to allow companies to face this difficult period is divided in 3 different categories. I've inserted here an infographic because I know they can be a bit puzzling. So this type of support is addressed only to the existing projects that are being funded by Innovate UK. They are including the startup projects. A part of it is directed to the companies that are facing issues with timings of costs, etc. So they can have further monthly payment for them. And there are the other 2 streams of the support are the match funding gaps, and they are divided in grants and loans. These are for small and medium enterprises that cannot be applied, the application cannot be sent by startups, but both type of supports are going from 25K to 1.6 million, depending if they are grants or loans. And this call is open until 29 May 2020. So if you're already a recipient of Innovate UK grants, I would suggest to apply as soon as possible. This is because Innovate UK is putting out now a series of support, financial support, that is following a fast track. So the turnaround will be quite quick. As for the call, the COVID-19 support that was launched in April, and the deadline was the 17th of April, you will have only few days to apply for them. So what the Innovate UK request to us was to get in contact with the companies, spread the word to the innovation ecosystem present in the Northwest, in every part of the UK, in order to provide adequate support to the companies. And actually, we are now working on this type of extra support that was mentioned before, that is called Survive, Stabilize and Grow. That is the support that we are providing for Innovate UK to the companies in order to allow them to know which type of grants are out, to face their challenges with the cash flow, etc. So if you are struggling, please let us know. There is plenty of support outside. So I will suggest to get in contact with us. So the Stabilize, Support and Grow is planned in order to allow companies to make sense of the government support landscape. But at the same time, there are a series of grants and support and financial plans that were already planned by the Innovate UK. One of them is the Mark Grant competition. The next one is closing the 27th of this month, but I know it's quite a difficult competition, this one. You need to be very focused on a specific sector. You need to be producing a proper innovation. But the good news is that this type of support, this type of competition is going on rolling. So after this one is closing on the 27th, there will be another one right after this one. So you can prepare yourself to do this. Another interesting grant, if you are working on COVID-19 responses, can be the UK Rewrite COVID-19 ideas. You can apply at any time. There is a limited amount of money, of course, you can request, but your project can go through 18 months. At the same time, there is open also the Future Leader Fellowship, and soon there will be out new COVID-19 related grants, similar to those ones that were launched in April. And on top of this, just specific for women funders and women doing innovation, later this year, the Women in Innovation Award will be out. The key suggestion we are giving to the companies, to women doing innovation, is don't apply just to Women in Innovation Award or just to Women in Innovation grants, women related grants. You are doing real innovation. You are contributing to the growth of this ecosystem. So please apply to the other grants too, especially because sometimes you can receive much more financial support than the gender restricted grants. I don't know, Claire Marie, please let me know when I'm running out of time.
Yeah, you're doing good. You're doing good.
Okay, brilliant. So talking about these, Women in Innovation is providing different type of support on top of the Women in Innovation grant. There are two different type of support. So there is a Women in Innovation Building Success series that is run by Katy, that is the other partner of Innovate UK, and the Women in Innovation workshops. We are having one tomorrow that is focused on crowdfunding and is sold out, and another one on public speaking and virtual communication next Tuesday. This is the Eventbrite link if you're interested to that. In June, there will be another one on innovation management. So if you're interested, we'll be sending Chichi the link to the Eventbrite event, and there will be more organized also with KTN in the next month. So between June and July. So if you are struggling with the grant application, because I know it's quite difficult, most of you, for those that sent out the application for the last COVID-19 response in April, should have now at this time have received some replies, some responses from Innovate UK. If you are struggling, we can provide a fully funded support to the companies that need a review and that are enrolled in our programs. On the other hand, for instance, Inventia is also providing bid writing and grant funding from a commercial point of view. Take into account that I need to make two clear distinctions. So the fully funding programs that are included within the EEN Support are the service partner for Enterprise Europe Network that is helping you if you want to internationalize. The Innovate to Succeed program that is addressed to the companies that are growing and they want to scale up, and the Scale Up program that is for companies that are already quite big and they are scaling up more than 20% per year. The type of support we can include within the different programs is quite broad. On top of this, we can insert you also in the supporting program that was mentioned before that has been created for the COVID-19 response. The other services are commercial services. They, of course, are provided by Inventia, but take into account that all the support that you can see in the right column, they are all fully funded. And they are, at the moment, they are funded 60% by the European Commission, 40% by Innovate UK. After Brexit, so after December, will be 100% funded by Innovate UK. So if you're having any question, you can ask me further question later. Here you're having my email if you need to contact me, if you don't understand how these grants landscape is shaped, because I know that it's quite difficult to understand who can apply to what, but we are here for this reason, and feel free to contact me or to ask me questions later.
Fantastic.
Great, thank you very much, Giulia. And for those of you, if you have any specific questions you'd like to ask this evening, just put your hands up on the functionality we looked at earlier. But I'm going to turn to Katy now, because you actually had some comments you wanted to make around this funding, and as a founder, what angle are you coming at this from?
Great question. So yeah, it might be easier for me to run through it in the context of the slides, actually. So I was wondering, I had a couple of questions around how do you decide what innovative is? So what's the criteria? Particularly, I'm going to make it easy by asking for the SMART grant, for example. For that particular, that ends on the 27th of May. I made some notes here. How do you decide whether a startup is eligible for it?
Okay, we don't decide it. Okay, is Innovate UK that is attributing, first of all, the grants to companies that are doing innovation. Take into account that for the smart grant, what we always suggest is to check out the industry challenges that are present in the governmental website, and there you can find which are the key streams that you need to consider in order to apply for the smart grant. The smart grant competition is quite complex. I'm aware of that. And most of the time, if company never did bid writing before, can struggle for it because it's very long application with a lot of documents. But key things to take into account are, first of all, consider if you are in scope with a call. Consider if you are doing innovation and specifically which specific innovation you are doing. So it can be just a generic statement, because the smart grants are looking for specific type of innovation depending on your sector. So innovation is not just labs, is not just technical innovation, but generally the companies that are successful within the smart with the smart grants are companies that do technical application of innovation. Okay, but it really depends on the specific project that you want to develop.
That's great. So I've always wondered this. So I've seen people in the female tech founder community apply for a bunch of different things from Innovate UK, and every so often someone says, look, you need to probably consider having a bid writer involved. Is that the case? Is that something people genuinely should start thinking about?
I think so. Because, well, for one simple thing, we are not expert in everything. I'm not an expert bid writer. I can provide support, for instance, but within Inventor, we're having a specific bid writing team, and they're expert in Innovate UK bid writing. So what we do generally, the companies enroll in our fully funded programs, they can review within the program for free the applications, but sometimes it is not enough because you need to follow very, very strict guidelines, and also the style that they use in order to present your project makes a difference. So the key type of suggestion that I can provide to everybody is to use the keywords present in the call. This is particularly important because the examiners are having only few minutes to evaluate your application. So if you are not using those words, they cannot go through them, and so they need to re-elaborate everything. So key suggestion, use the key words, explain which is the technological challenge and the market opportunity driving your innovation. So explain which is the business need, and explain very well which is the focus of the innovation that you are proposing. This is something that is absolutely essential.
That's really helpful. This is a slightly cheeky question, so it might help someone. So if I decided to become part of the fully funded network, does that mean I would have some support whilst putting together a grant application for women innovation and another COVID-19 package of support that comes out? Is that the way the relationship works?
Okay, the type of support, first of all, there is quite, we cannot enroll everybody in the fully funded support. You need to comply with certain criteria, and of course we are at the moment we are having many people asking and many companies asking to be enrolled in the EEN programs. The type of support we are providing is like a coaching support. So we go through with you within a series of different topics we are generally exploring with the companies, and we can decide together which ones you want to focus on and which one are having the priority according to the strategies you want to bring forward, and we can explore them with that. If there are, for instance, possibilities to apply for a grant that you are interested to, what we can do, we can suggest you say, okay, you are at the right stage at the moment, so we will suggest you to apply, or we can say, you know what, you don't have these things already in place, so it's better probably if you work on this type of, your cash flow, or your the identification of your customer personas before applying for the grant. And this is because doing bid writing is time consuming. It's very time consuming, and if you are not at the right stage, it could be a bit of also disappointing. And this is what we don't want to see within the company. We don't want to see people that are just saying, okay, I'm not able to do that. I will never be able to receive a positive response. So when there is time when you are within the right stage for applying to a grant, what you should do with us is to go through that. We can give you a free review of that to our specialized team, okay, and we can help you, leading you somehow to the right direction. But at the same time, we are within the Innovate Fully Funded Support. We are not providing consultancy support. So you should be, or the company should be the one that is writing the bid. But we can provide you feedback. Of course, our informed feedback. Alternatively, I'm always suggesting, if you don't have the time, if you don't know where to start, it's always better to have a small investment in paying for a bid writing person that is able and knows outside down what the bid is asking for, what the grant is asking for, in order to have more possibility to have a positive response for the grant.
That's great. I've got one final question. And so I've got people in mind as I ask you these, and I'm not necessarily asking purely for myself, but I mentioned earlier there's someone in the community who got some sad news on Friday about not having an Innovate UK application sort of come through successfully. Mm-hmm. And I said to them, like, you can come along to this and you can ask questions around what constitutes a good application. And I'm asking this kind of on their behalf. So how do you, given that Inventia and the EEN network are part of this ecosystem around grant funding and support for innovation, are you in the position to be able to advise someone on another application on the basis of the fact that you can see ones that were unsuccessful that they've actually gone for?
Well, when we are working with companies that already submitted some application, it's always useful to see which was the feedback from Innovate UK, for instance, or why they were not successful with the previous application, so we can provide further support for the next one. What you need to remember every time that you're applying for Innovate UK grant is that there is the 2 submission rule that applies to Innovate UK. So you can make the 3rd submission if the previous 2 haven't been successful for the same project. You can change project, but for the same project, you can only apply twice to Innovate UK.
Makes sense. That's great. That's actually useful. This has been really interesting. It's something that personally I'm interested because it affects other people in the Female Tech Fund Network. We're such a small team that I haven't really put any more time into grant funding or Innovate UK and things like that, because it takes a lot of time. But it's useful to know that there's people you can actually approach that have services that support you with grant finding and bid writing, and potentially have some support that people can, as they grow, take advantage of it. So that's really useful for me. I'll let you take over, Clemery. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks very much, both of you. And we have one question in our chat box from Anna Pets. And the question is, are only UK companies eligible for these grants?
Yeah, only companies that are present in Companies House.
Right, so that's the requirement. And then I have a question around innovation, actually. When you say, where, I can't even articulate the right question, but what is it have to innovate around? Can it be a product, or can it be a service, or what? Give us some examples so that we can think about like some successful examples.
It can be a product, and this is the easy part. So, I mean, everybody can imagine an innovative product. It can be a product that is also developed, for instance, a software that can be considered a product. It can be also how you manage your business that can be considered innovative. So also processes can be considered innovative. Services can be considered innovative. So innovation is like a broad understanding of what innovation is. It's not just the specific product. So this is particularly important for companies. Don't think that you are not doing innovation just because you are not in a lab. Okay.
Yeah. And can you give us an example? So particularly around processes, can you give us a tangible example?
Mm-hmm. Okay, for instance, I'm working with a company that is having a very good and innovative process in how they are working with the administration of the companies. They're producing consumables, and I cannot make the name of the company, I'm sorry, but they are producing consumables. But what we found very innovative is how they're managing the different processes, how the different parts of the business are connected. So the innovation is the connection present between the different stages of the production.
Cool. Great. Any other questions from our audience? If you want to either raise your hand or type it into the chat box, we're happy to take any questions. And if you come up with any more, we can obviously ask them throughout the whole evening. Giulia, thank you very much. There is a lot in there. There is a lot to check. And I think I agree with you. You know, these things do take time to complete properly, and that is quite an investment, but it's really good to get a steer and to understand how many different options there are. And I think one of the key messages I'm picking up is what you said. It is like, apply for all the grants you can. Don't just be applying for the women in grants. And actually you'll get better at applying the more that you do as well. So I think we have one more question here. Let me just say, for the Innovate UK grant for companies that have not yet received funding, is there specific scope for the competition?
Which Innovate UK grant are you referring to? Okay, so the second part, so then there will be generally, we still don't have any information, specific information, but what we know, there will be other calls out, they will be probably addressed to the COVID-19 response, and there will be other for more generic applications of the projects, but we still don't have detail about that.
So I'll just ask for clarity on that. So is this basically the one that's there to support people who might have ideas around the COVID-19 outbreak? Is that what this fund is for?
Okay, there are different types of funds. So at the moment, all the funds that are officially out are those for the companies that already have an Innovate UK support. There will be soon out other type of support on top of the smart grant, etc., that is already existing. So the other support that will be put out by Innovate UK will be for COVID-19 response. They will be similar to those that were launched in April and they closed on the 17th of April.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Cool.
So Chichi, can I ask you, what are the key things you're taking away from this session? Is there anything that's really jumped out at you?
I think if you've got someone keeping an eye on what's coming through from Innovate UK, and you've got the resource to commit to grant funding, bid writing, you definitely increase your chances of being successful. The reasons why a lot of really small companies, really small startups don't do it is because the criteria is very specific, and sometimes you don't see the calls in time. So, for example, the things that are due for the 27th of May, even if I was in a position to actually decide doing that, it's just not enough time. So, but having said that, I've worked with companies, I've interacted with founders who've been benefited quite a lot from actually getting support from Innovate UK. So particularly around the Women in Innovation program. And that's why I'm quite keen to hear more about that as that develops. So personally, I would actually say, completely honestly, personally, when the calls for funding come through, the Women in Innovation program tends to take a bit more of my time in terms of interest, because I feel, well, actually, this might be an opportunity to put in a strong application, because it will potentially weed out. It's a much smaller pool generally of other people competing in that. So I'll argue. I would say basically, rather than, for me personally, taking away suggestion to apply for as many of the grants as possible. I'm actually still probably going to be on the fence about quite a lot of the other grants because of the size of the company I run. And I'll keep an eye out for women in innovation. But for those that I know that are working in fields where they need this funding, people in the network that we know that are working on things that just wouldn't come to be unless there's some funding and support, I'll point them to the direction of Inventia and the bid writing support they can get from there, because I think people just need to start investing in that support. Otherwise you get lots and lots of demoralizing, unsuccessful responses, and it's just not worth time.
Yeah. And I think people can find the actual act of applying for grants or even loans crystallizes your idea sometimes, you know, because you have to articulate it in a certain way. So it can actually help you refine maybe your business model, or like you say, the benefit. What is it you're actually doing? So that process, although it takes time, it's not always wasted, and it can sharpen up your thinking.
I agree. I have looked at some applications before, and things that have come out from it have always been successful. I've been able to apply them to the way Ascenti works and also to the way we plan to do things. So I've found certain calls are actually useful for sort of firming your head around certain trends. So the calls around artificial intelligence, for example, they tend to give you, if you've got time to sit and read through it, they really do inform you on what your type of sector and your company should be thinking about around sort of, you know, the trends in machine learning and in sort of natural language processing for a company like Ascenti. So I'm happy to be part of the Innovate UK network. It's just that the time of it, the timing with the application process can mean that for me personally, I tend to sit on the fence a lot. So great question you've got in the chat. Let's see how other people think about it.
Yeah, so how many of you have applied for grants? And also, how many of you have successfully received grants? That would be interesting if anybody. Finally, Giulia, have you any other final comments you want to make?
Just for the smart grants, for instance, the teacher was mentioning, remember that even if this one is closing on the 27th, there will be another one right after it. So if you think that it's right for you, start thinking about that grant. Take into account that it's very competitive. Last year, out of 1,000 applications, only 80 were funded. So it's quite competitive. It's not very easy. But if you think that you're having a strong project, feel free to apply to it. There will be another one right after the 27th.
Yeah, that's good. That's good advice. That's good to know.
I've got sorry, I've got a slightly cheeky little interjection there. So one thing I'd be grateful for in this whole sort of area really is some visibility on how likely a company is to be successful in the grant application process. And I guess really when it comes down to it, the only people that can tell us that are Innovate UK or their partners like Inventia or the EEN network. So I guess what I'm trying to say is part of the initial engagement with a company like Inventia, if one was taking your commercial services up, is part of that engagement around, so these are your chances for these sorts of applications, because I think the more people are aware that that's part of the initial process, the more likely people are able to actually get involved anyway.
Yeah, we don't want to sweeten the pill. We want to be real. So sometimes there are certain applications that are more competitive than the others. For the last one on COVID-19, for instance, Innovate UK was expecting 1,000 applications. We received 8,500. So, wow. And it is more than the entire number of last year applications received by Innovate UK, just for one call. So what we are imagining now, the number of applications that will be, the Innovate UK will be receiving will be much higher than the last year. So there will be much more competition, but at the same time, there will be more calls out. So somehow balancing it, we don't know, because it depends on how many people will be applying for that. But definitely there will be more competition than the last year, for instance.
My final question, and I'll stop now, genuinely. So would you say a pragmatic view of this is to say, look, as a company that's sort of evaluating the landscape post COVID-19, you know, as you're deciding to have grant funding as a big part of your income stream, is it worth now literally sitting down and doing the numbers on whether you can afford someone like Inventia and becoming part of their network, and then planning that into how you work, because you can see that there's going to be a lot of competition for grant funding, and it might just have to be a way people survive as well. What do you think?
If you think, if a company thinks that the project that they are proposing is very good, yes. And I think we are doing with Inventia, we're not just saying, okay, you can apply if we think that that company is not having is not meeting all the criteria, is not in scope with the application. So this is not in our interest. What we want to do is to help companies to grow, also because, well, this is what we do. We are doing innovation. So if we are not helping companies to do innovation too, it will be pointless for us. So if a company is not in scope, we will be mentioning straight away, literally.
So companies that are already engaging with you, are they coming because, and this is like a loaded question, you can ignore it, are they coming because of the internationalization support you provide, as well as the bid writing and the grant funding? How does it work?
We tend to separate the two things. The EEN support, so the fully funded support we are providing, is for companies that do internationalization, but not only, also for companies that are doing innovation and they are growing within the UK. In that case, we tend to provide the fully funded support, unless the company asks to us to be on the commercial side. On the other hand, the commercial the commercial department are providing the normal commercial services, but if they think that a company can benefit from our fully funded support, they are referring them to us too. So we try to help each other from this point of view. So I mean, if there is a company that's in scope with our fully funded criteria, why not? Why don't ask them if they want to be part of the program?
Cool. It's starting to make sense to me. It's starting to coalesce in my head. So you basically would be coming in contact with Inventia because one's business is around grant funding and around, you know, is a type of product or service that needs that support to exist. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of, all the other things you offer, internationalization, support with scale up, all that comes out of that engagement. Is that right?
Yeah, also take into account that sometimes we are having contact with companies. For instance, some of these companies present during this event is contacting me, telling me, okay, I would like to be inserted in this fully funded program. Of course, I'm engaging with that person, with the company, with that person, definitely. So it really depends on. Well, we need to take into account that our final aim is to help companies that do innovation to do it well. Literally. So if we can support them through the fully funded programs, we are more than happy. So we can, especially for companies that are struggling a bit in this period, we can give them a push and help them to be a bit more resilient. That's great. If their company want a more specific support, a more consultancy type support, we can refer them to the commercial services.